a lot of people that experience really deep trauma, they check out in one way or another, right? The, drug overdose or, getting themselves in an accident or whatever it may be. So people who have learned to live with trauma and somehow survive trauma are really resilient. They have usually a lot of life force or the mission to be here for a reason that they are not checking out. They've just walled off this part of them so they can continue until hopefully now, hiring someone like you or meeting a really skilled therapist, they can learn the tools to now go back to learn how to cope with something at that time was unmanageable to them. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. And, a lot of this for me comes back to our relationship with vulnerability. And the trauma is really an experience we have, which is a vulnerability that runs so deep that what happens is our psyche says, okay, we can never re-experience a vulnerability like that because it wasn't safe, right? So what happens is we start creating, especially with, any sort of obsessive compulsive pattern, is we start creating, whether it's routines or rituals or thought patterns or behaviors, as a way of avoiding ever re-experiencing that vulnerability. So for me, a lot of the work is the willingness to step into that vulnerability and really allow ourselves to feel whatever emotions want to rise up in us. And a lot of times when we're struggling with anxiety, for me, anxiety is not a feeling. Anxiety is the avoidance of feeling. And when we have a lot of these negative thoughts or anxiety or whatever it is, a lot of times that's the avoidance of the feeling. And remember, feeling is a somatic experience, right? Emotions are energy in motion, and that energy is in the body. So a lot of times what happens is we try and divorce ourselves from our body. We try and live from the neck up in our minds. And a lot of times we use the thinking to avoid the feeling. We use the mind to avoid the body. And that's where we start creating a lot of those stress patterns.